You know, if you ever find dirt from your childhood, make sure it remains buried. My dirt is Race Against Time. Although I like this movie more than Alien Swarm, well, I mean, I think it's funnier. Seriously, the moment you stop taking this movie seriously, the movie becomes much more enjoyable. I should probably point out that I have a cold, so if my voice sounds a little weird, you know why. So what is Ben 10 Race Against Time? Don't worry, I'll tell you. Once upon a time, Cartoon Network decided it would be a marvelous idea to have a live-action adaptation to their successful show at the time, Ben 10. The show was only 2 years old and they quickly wanted to make a live-action spin. And at the time, Samurai Jack was begging for a live-action adaptation, although honestly, maybe it was best not to adapt a live-action Samurai Jack movie if it means making a movie like Race Against Time. So the movie is about Ben returning to school after the summer vacation as he struggles to cope with his stressful life outside summer, and there's an evil version of him from another timeline named Eon who wants to take over Ben's body. You know, this doesn't sound like a terrible premise. This actually sounds like it could work. It didn't, okay? It didn't work. First of all, the actor that plays the main character, Ben, is awful. He shows no emotion and feels like he's trying to deliver his lines as quickly as possible. Ben's character was incredibly stupid. I could not relate to him in no way whatsoever. There's a scene where he forgot who the plumbers were. You just came back from somewhere. Look, I get what they were going for. They wanted an excuse to remind the audience and tell the newcomers who the plumbers are. But did they really think it would be a great idea to have the character that obsesses with fighting against aliens the most to be the one forgetting who they are? Also, there's another scene where he literally says that assistants should be women.
In there and give me stuff. Gee, that sounds like something an assistant does. Girls are assistants. Times have changed, cuz.
Gwen's actress looked so disinterested in doing her role and she had a condescending voice that repelled me. And there's this scene where Gwen pretty much drained Ben's self-esteem by saying that without the watch, he's nothing. Am I supposed to like her? That scene at the end where Gwen was capable of reaching through Ben's mind was sweet, although honestly I was distracted by how the Cronian didn't immediately kill her. Honestly, who am I supposed to relate in this movie? Who am I supposed to root for? I don't know, this guy?
Can I see that?
I don't know. Can you?
I would relate to Max if he wasn't so bored. The actor that played Grandpa Max was better than Ben, but he looked so bored and talked like everything that was happening was uninteresting as heck. When he found out that Eon was present in the timeline and was following Ben, he looked so bored. When one of his friends turned into a zombie or something, he was talking as if what just happened was eh. Also, that zombie dude was talking like a puppet and I couldn't take anything he was saying seriously. Every other character from this movie was acting like cartoon characters, especially the principal. Which is baffling because the director of this movie expressed in an interview that he wanted the movie to have a more realistic and less cartoonish tone.
We wanted to bring them into the real world. We didn't want it to look cartoony, just like we didn't want the acting and the characters to be cartoony. You know, it was about, so we wanted the whole world to feel real.
The irony of that is that the original Ben 10 wasn't even that cartoonish. I mean, it was kids friendly, don't get me wrong, but not cartoonish. Take all the sci-fi elements from the cartoon and you had a fairly realistic characters. If we were talking about Omniverse, I would understand because the show is cartoonish, but I think we can agree the director wasn't talking about Omniverse because this movie was released 5 years before Omniverse started airing. The villain from this movie, Eon, was horrible. Now, because I know Eon, I understand his motivation in this movie, but if I came here with no knowledge of the Ben 10 franchise, I would be incredibly confused. I did not understand a single thing that guy said in that scene when he was explaining his origin because of his terrible performance and that blinded. I only understood the part where he said that the Omnitrix only lets you become an alien for 10 minutes to prevent the host from being overwhelmed and that he can deactivate that function, and that was it. I didn't understand anything else he said. He said something about freeing his people and becoming gods. I of course know who he's talking about. He's talking about his fellow Cronians and how he wants to use Ben to transform into a Cronian alien, and with the failsafe deactivated, he will be overrun by the Cronian alien, and then he will activate the Hands of Armageddon to free all Cronians and start an invasion on Earth. but not because they explained it well in the movie. No, I had to find that out by myself. Even so, they didn't explain how Eon is capable of deactivating the failsafe from the Omnitrix. He just knows, I guess. Yes, I know that he can deactivate the failsafe because he's an alternate version of Ben and has knowledge of the Omnitrix, but they didn't explain us that in the movie. Heck, I'm not even sure if they even mentioned it. I think that was only explaining like Ben 10,000 Returns. The cartoon series was forced to fix the mess this movie made. The movie never explained that Eon is an alternate version of Ben from another timeline. Speaking of which, why is Gwen missing her magic powers? It's the end of the summer. By that time in Ben 10's continuity, Gwen was already using her magic powers. Yes, I know this is an alternate timeline, but not only was that not explained in this movie, but actually explained in the Ultimate series 4 years later. But even if we assume that Gwen didn't have the chance to meet Charmcaster in this timeline, ergo gaining access to the magic, the Book of Spells wasn't the only source of magic. It was her Anodite DNA. So this movie is expecting us to assume that somehow they didn't encounter with Charmcaster or Hex, and the Book of Spells was the only way she could have, I guess, triggered her powers. That is a lot to ask for me. Okay, I understand that the people behind this movie may have started working on this movie before Gwen started using her magic powers, which I'm assuming because I'm not sure if that was the case. I still have to confirm that. But you know, that's when you need the supervision and consent from the creator of the show to avoid these inconsistencies. Everything else about the movie is, well, equally terrible. The music here was awful. It was either generic, especially in the action sequences, or completely inappropriate. There were moments I actually thought I was watching those corny Disney TV movies. There's a scene where Grandpa Max gives Ben an important lesson about keeping his hero life apart from his normal life, and it plays this completely inappropriate cheesy score doing it.
That was summer and it's over. We're home now. Ben Tennyson's got to be Ben Tennyson again. It's your responsibility as a kid and as a hero with a secret. Be a kid again, Benjamin. That's an order.
Look, I'm sorry. Hannah Montana the movie had a better music direction. The action in this movie was horrible. The aliens looked stupid, the Omnitrix looked stupid, the CGI was poor and cheap, the green screen in a few scenes, not much, was too noticeable, and the choreography was stupid. Speaking of bad CGI and green screen, the director of this movie promised there wouldn't be any Jar Jar, implying I guess that the CGI won't look as terrible, or that there won't be any character as bad as Jar Jar. Well, I haven't watched episode 1, so I really can't tell if there's a character here that's as bad as Jar Jar, but I can definitely say that a Gray Matter and Heat Bass look just as stupid. But getting back to the choreography, the henchmen were probably the best part about this movie, because they were so ridiculous that I could not stop laughing. The first few minutes of the movie before the title sequence was one of the funniest 4 minutes of my life. Heat Blast, for some reason he's a little agile and knows a few moves, even though that's not the case in the cartoon. He just generates power. And he looks incredibly stupid kicking those henchmen. There's another scene where he tries to lift the ground with his fire generating powers, and it looked like he was having difficulties trying to fly. Even when I was a kid, I thought he looked retarded. Although that scene where the cops arrived was possibly the funniest, those ninjas started kicking their asses and both the cops and the ninjas look ridiculous. Those never ending cuts didn't help. That's another thing. Why are there so many cuts in the action scenes? It gave me a headache every time they constantly cut through shots in the fighting scene. The camera work was dumb, the transformation scenes looked fake, the voice acting of the aliens was mediocre. I don't understand why they didn't just use the original voice actors of the aliens. Gray Matter's voice particularly annoyed me. You know, besides the scene where Gwen told Ben that she loves him, which worked for me because their relationship during the entire movie seemed a little broken, and it makes sense that she would go soft on him in a moment of desperation. Plus at the end, while the relationship didn't necessarily change drastically, you felt a bit of growth. Anyway, besides that moment, just nothing else even slightly good about the movie. There were a few meh elements in this movie, like Ben's awkward parents and the magic show, but by the end of the day, trust me, they end up being pointless. Basically, this movie is everything wrong about, well, everything. It's a greedy adaptation, it's a disloyal adaptation. It was poorly directed and it was so inconsistent to the Ben 10 continuity that you're better off not watching this movie. Well, unless you want to laugh. I mean, I said in the beginning of the video that I like this movie more than Alien Swarm, not because I think it's better from a technical perspective. Oh, no. I just find it to be much more enjoyable. Alien Swarm was a huge improvement over Race Against Time. Both of them suck, so it's really a question of whether you would like to watch a movie that gives you hope that might turn out to be decent, or the one that has no chance to redeem itself. I of course chose to watch The Lost Cause, and nothing is going to change that. Anyway, subscribe if you want to watch more of my content. I'm really sorry about my voice. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Bye for now.